I still don't know what possessed me to bring my baby brother with me that night. Looking back, it was probably the most irresponsible decision I've ever made, but at the same time, it didn't seem like such a big deal. I was obsessed with the idea of seeing a dogman. I'd spent countless hours reading about them online, watching grainy YouTube videos, and poring over blurry photographs. There were enough eyewitness accounts to convince me that something was out there, lurking in the shadows, and I was determined to find it. The place I wanted to visit was known locally as Dogman's Hollow. It was a stretch of dense forest about 20 miles from town, infamous for its eerie atmosphere and the stories surrounding it. People claimed to have seen strange, humanoid creatures with dog-like faces stalking through the trees, their glowing eyes visible in the darkness. Some said they'd heard guttural growls and howls that didn't sound like any normal animal. A few even claimed to have been chased. Naturally, that area was a magnet for thrill seekers, cryptid enthusiasts, and people like me. I'd been planning my trip for weeks, waiting for the perfect night to go. That night, everything seemed to align. The sky was clear, the moon was full, and the forest would be illuminated just enough to see without a flashlight. The only problem was that my parents had left me in charge of my baby brother. My baby brother was only 3, a bright-eyed, curious little kid who loved to follow me around. He had this habit of repeating everything I said and giggling at his own mispronunciations. He was adorable, but also a handful, and the last thing I wanted was to be stuck at home, babysitting, while the chance of a dogman encounter slipped through my fingers. So I made a stupid decision. I packed a bag with snacks, water, and a few toys to keep him occupied, bundled him into his car seat, and told myself it would be fine. We'd just go for a short drive to the edge of the woods, sit in the car, and maybe listen for some strange noises. I didn't plan on actually going into the forest, not with my baby brother in tow. But plans have a way of changing. The drive to the area was uneventful. My baby brother babbled in the back seat, playing with a stuffed dinosaur while I kept my eyes on the road. As we got closer to the forest, the trees seemed to close in around us, their gnarled branches casting long shadows under the moonlight. I felt a thrill of excitement and a pang of nervousness, but I pushed it aside. This was what I'd been waiting for. I parked the car at the edge of a dirt path that led into the woods. The air was cool and still, and the only sounds were the chirping of crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves. My baby brother was starting to get fussy, so I handed him a juice box and told him we were going on an adventure. He seemed delighted by the idea, kicking his little legs as I unbuckled him from his seat. I slung the bag over my shoulder, hoisted him onto my hip, and started walking down the path. I told myself it would only be for a few minutes, just far enough to say we'd been in the forest. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting strange patterns on the ground, and every crack of a twig made my heart jump. At first, everything was quiet. The woods had a heavy, oppressive atmosphere, like the kind you feel just before a storm. My baby brother was unusually quiet too, his little fingers gripping the collar of my jacket as he looked around with wide eyes. I whispered to him that it was okay, that we were just exploring, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were secretly being watched. About 20 minutes in, the forest changed. The air grew colder, and the chirping of crickets stopped abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Even my baby brother seemed to sense something was wrong. He whimpered softly, burying his face against my shoulder. I tried to stay calm, but my nerves were starting to fray. And then I heard a low growl coming from somewhere ahead. It was deep and resonant, vibrating through the stillness like a warning. I froze, my breath caught in my throat, and strained to see through the trees. At first I saw nothing but shadows, but then movement. Something was there, just beyond the reach of the moonlight. It was tall, impossibly tall, with broad shoulders and a hulking frame that didn't match anything I'd ever seen. My heart pounded as it stepped closer, and the moonlight revealed its face. It was humanoid, but wrong. Its head was massive, shaped like a wolf or a dog, with pointed ears and a long snout filled with sharp teeth. Its eyes glowed an unnatural yellow, fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. The rest of its body was covered in coarse dark fur, and its hands or paws ended in long claw-like fingers. It stood upright, towering over the trees, and its chest rose and fell with slow, deliberate breaths. I was paralyzed, unable to move or think. It's because of this that even now I doubt what I saw. It was pretty dark at the moment. My baby brother whimpered again, louder this time, and the sound seemed to snap the creature's attention to him. It tilted its head and took a slow step toward us. "Shh, it's okay," I whispered to him, my voice trembling. But it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. The creature took another step, its claws digging into the earth with an audible crunch. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I couldn't just leave. Not with my baby brother in danger. Clutching him tightly, I turned and started walking backward, never taking my eyes off the thing. It followed. Its movements were slow at first, almost lazy, as if it were toying with us. But the moment I broke into a run, it lunged forward, letting out a deafening roar that made my blood turn to ice. I sprinted down the path, my baby brother screaming in my arms, branches whipping against my face as I stumbled through the darkness. The creature was right behind us. I could hear its heavy footfalls, its ragged breathing, and the snapping of branches as it barreled through the forest. I didn't dare look back, too terrified of what I might see. My only thought was to reach the car, to get my baby brother out of there, to survive. Somehow, I made it. Bursting out of the trees, I threw open the car door and shoved my baby brother inside, slamming the door shut just as the creature emerged from the woods. It stopped at the edge of the trees, its glowing eyes locked onto me. For a moment, it just stood there, its chest heaving, and I thought maybe it wouldn't come any closer. But then it opened its mouth and made some kind of howling noise. It was a long, bone-chilling sound that echoed through the night, and stepped forward. I scrambled into the driver's seat, started the car, and floored the gas pedal. The tires spun in the dirt before catching traction, and we sped away, leaving the creature behind. When I finally dared to look in the rearview mirror, it was gone. I didn't stop driving until we were back home, safe within the familiar walls of our house. My baby brother had fallen asleep, exhausted from crying, while I couldn't stop shaking. I locked every door and window, pulled the curtain shut, and sat up all night, staring into the darkness and waiting for the thing to come back. It didn't. When I tried to tell my parents what had happened, they didn't believe me. They said I must have imagined it, that I let my imagination get the better of me. It's also good to know I did get in trouble for what I did. I agree with what they said, that wasn't something good to do. Anyways, I know what I saw. I know what chased us through those woods. And I know that, as excited as I was, now I'm filled with a terror that will never leave me. And so I'll never set foot in that area again. Hope you enjoyed that story, and I'll see you in the next one. See you on the flip side.